Okay.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Pikes Peak Business Builder Series. My name is Brandon Eldridge, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Colorado SBDC serving the Pikes Peak region. For those of you who may not be familiar with our work, the SBDC provides no-cost, one-on-one business advising for practical training in entrepreneurs and small businesses at every stage of growth. We support startups, established businesses, and guidance in areas like business planning, marketing, operations, and financial readiness. The Business Builder series, which is what you're here part of today, is designed to bring experienced professionals who can offer useful, real-world insights on topics that matter to business owners. So today's session covers a topic that often goes unspoken in the workplace, but it has real impact on the people and performance. Grief is not limited to the loss of a loved one. It can come through divorce, illness, burnout, family challenges, career transitions, and other life changes. When those experiences go unrecognized, they can affect focus, communication, decision making, and the workplace relationships. So that's why I'm so grateful to introduce Crystal Givens, certified advanced grief recovery specialist, say that three times fast, and founder of EBB and Flow COS. Crystal brings nearly 20 years of experience helping individuals and workplaces better understand the impact of loss and respond in healthier, more practical ways. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Miss Crystal Givens. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And also, thank you everyone for showing up. I know this isn't a very popular or comfortable topic, and the fact that you're here shows that you want to learn. And that makes me so happy because
Mhm.
um, I got to stay to my script or I'm going to go down a rabbit hole of how excited I am. And, and the reason why I'm excited is because when we learn this information, it can make a huge difference on the direction we take and how we show up at work. So, again, thank you for being here. Um,
Yeah.
so, again, like Brandon is saying, grief just doesn't show up in our lives, it shows up every day and especially in the workplace. And this is actually supported by a lot of research. And I'm just going to give you a few stats. The first one is over 75, and I'm sorry, Rebecca, can you go to the first slide?
Yeah. There we go.
So, over $75 billion is lost in US businesses from the impact of grief at work. And that number, it keeps growing, it's staggering. And another interesting number, over 30% employees experience a huge decrease in their ability to focus and just show up at work and do their job. 30%. And the saddest statistic is only 3 to 5 days of bereavement leave are offered to employees. 3 to 5 days to recover, to process what you've been through after your life might be literally turned upside down and to show up back at work. So, no wonder there's a 30% decrease in focus and performance. No wonder so much money is lost at work and businesses. It's costing businesses. And also, most companies aren't prepared. They don't know how to recognize grief. And most importantly, they don't know how to support their employees. So, that's where these stats come from. So, what is grief? And I want to share a few definitions. Grief is the normal and natural reaction to any type of loss. So, what that means is whatever you're feeling, however you're responding, is normal and natural for you. There's no neat little tidy box of how to grieve. It's messy, it's up and down. It's like riding an emotional roller coaster. And grief is also the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. And what I mean by conflicting feelings, I'll just share from my life. When my grandma died, I was with her. I was obviously very, very sad that she died because she was like a mom to me, but I was so relieved. I was thankful she wasn't suffering anymore. So that's an example of conflicting feelings. Or missing someone and also feeling very angry about what happened. Okay, so And many of the losses that we're dealing with, we don't even realize that they're showing up at work. And most people, I never knew this, there are more than 40 different life experiences that are considered losses. And some of the losses we recognize, and I want to share a few of the ones that we typically associate. Well, yeah, that's grief. Obviously, death of a loved one, death of our pet. That's a huge loss. A divorce, a romantic breakup, when there's a change in our job or if we lose our job, and health challenges. So these are usually losses that we're familiar with, and typically there's support groups around them that help us when we're going through these type of losses. But what I found in my work, that some of the most painful losses are the ones that are harder to see and the ones that many of us can be carrying very quietly. And many of these losses don't get recognized, but they're very real and they impact us. Estrangement from family, not hearing from a family member, cutting somebody off just for personal safety. It's not safe to talk to them. Not hearing from a relative, maybe estrangement from one of your children, a loss of a friendship, somebody who's always there for you, and that friendship, it's over, it ended very painfully. Empty nest, a loss of identity. We could be in a new season of our life with our businesses or changes, and we're trying to find ourselves or we're trying to rebuild our lives. A loss of safety, a loss of trust or control. And what I mean by a loss of safety and control, that implies sexual abuse. It could be emotional abuse, business struggles, financial stress. And here's the biggest one that I discover with most of my clients: the loss of hopes, dreams, and expectations. The expectations we had for our lives. I even met one person whose life has turned out the way they planned and expected. And then also the loss of our dreams. What we thought we would have with our businesses, what we planned for it to, how it to turn out, and it didn't turn out the way we dreamed about. The loss of relationships, maybe a marriage, maybe how our families turned out, maybe how our children turned out, the choices they've made. Those are major losses and it impacts us. So, and especially the business struggles and financial stress, especially what's going on in our economy, it shows up and it's affecting us. And so when I share some of those losses, the one that comes to me that's kind of freshest is empty nest. I'd always heard about empty nest. I always thought, well, that's got to be cool. The kids go and then you have all this freedom. No, it wasn't that way for me. When my daughter decided to join the Marine Corps, I I was in shock because she was a ballet dancer. She was a competitive dancer. Now she's going to learn how to shoot guns. I I was happy for her, but then again, I was really sad because we were visiting colleges. She's thinking about becoming a lawyer, going in the FBI, and now the Marine Corps. So a lot of conflicting feelings. And then she went to boot camp right out of high school, and I felt like she was ripped out of my life. And again, she's doing great, but it wasn't what I planned for, hoped for, or expected. I envisioned sending care packages while she's at college and have her coming home for the holidays. None of that happened. So that was a big grieving experience for me. And then also the loss of identity, as I didn't realize how much of my life was wrapped up in being a mom. So those were some very hard, heavy hitting losses that I had to work through. So for you, what loss pops out at you? Or maybe what's a loss you're going through now?
Without trauma dumping, I'm going through a big ambiguous loss, like what you're talking about here, um, with an estranged family member, which I don't know, 8 months ago became estranged really rapidly. Some mental health issues on their side. And when things like that break apart, when you actually think you're really close, really good friends, it's a big loss. And like she's still alive, but there's not much I can do to bring her back into my life, you know? And at this point, that wouldn't even be a good option. And so there's like yeah, there's definitely been a really heavy grief there, especially last fall when it happened. Processing through that is really hard. It kind of takes your breath away a little bit when it's shocking, because there's also that element, almost like when someone dies suddenly in a car accident, you have that like shock factor. It was similar to that, except for she's still alive. So there's that ambiguity there as well, which is really tough. Very emotionally exhausting, taxing for sure.
Yeah. I
I'm
love how
sorry.
you named it ambiguous. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Crystal.
No, go ahead, Rebecca.
I just like that word ambiguous loss. I think that's, I've heard that before as well, and it's a helpful framing because it's not like one, like you said earlier, Crystal, it's not one that we would recognize, and you can't define it as this is an end and this is exactly when it ended and how it ended. There's this sort of ongoing uncertainty around it. Because that person's sort of still alive and still around, and what could change next. And yeah, thanks for naming that, Sarah.
Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. I'm very sorry to hear about your friend. Thank you.
I was going
Anybody?
to share too at the beginning why I picked this topic for the Wellbeing Wednesday series for business owners is, as you mentioned, Crystal, there's a lot of things that happen in the workplace that we don't identify as a loss, but they have grief of feelings, a complexity of emotions around it too. And I first heard this at an HR conference this year that even like a promotion of like your boss getting promoted or your boss leaving can be a loss of person that you trusted, or an employee leaving, a person that you counted on, that you trusted and wanted and did a significant role, or even like a strategic shift in priorities, a change in the culture, a merge, or the dropping of a product line that was really valuable. I'm going through to talk to an organization this week about they're recognizing that right now 80% of their profit comes from only 20% of their products. And so they're going to do some major shifting in their product line, and it's causing a lot of sadness and confusion. Some people's roles are going to change. And um, I know I experienced a layoff, and I didn't even realize all the levels of loss when I lost my job. It was community, it was identity, it wasn't just a paycheck.
Those are great examples. Thank you, Rebecca. And also people, since COVID, more businesses, people are working from home remotely and missing that community, that connection. That has been a massive loss and created a lot of problems at home. People are isolating, depressed, and falling into unhealthy habits to deal with that. So, thank you. So, we can be carrying a lot of emotions, a lot of pain, and not even realize that they're related to a loss.
Mhm.
And so we stay quiet and we just try to do our best or check out. And so, what, and this is why grief is so misunderstood and overlooked, because we don't realize we're grieving. We don't associate, we don't connect it to the truth. And all of our lives, we're taught how to acquire things, how to get that new bike. You got to work this much and get enough money to buy that new bike. Got to go to college, get that career going, marriage, have a family, the new car, the vacation. But where's the teaching? Where's the support when we lose one of those things? So, can you go to the next slide, please? So, because we're not taught or supported, or we don't learn the correct tools on what to do when we lose things, we tend to naturally fall back on how we were raised, what we were believed, or what we saw our parents handling, how we saw them handling painful things. And basically, we call these the 6 myths of grief. And the first one, see, is don't feel bad. And I really like for this time to be interactive. Um, don't feel bad. There's more fish in the sea. that relationship wasn't meant to be for you. You'll get over it. You're fine. Has anyone ever heard this comment when you're hurting? At least they're not suffering anymore. They're in a better place. So when we hear this, it dismisses our feelings. And then we might be hesitant to share honestly what's going on and how we're really feeling. So this is a big common one. Don't feel bad. But again, going back to the definition of grief, it's our normal and natural reaction to the loss. How can we not feel bad?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Brandon.
I'm reminded of Jelly Roll's song, I Am Not Okay. And in the
Yes.
song, he says, if I say that I'm doing okay, just know it's because I've learned to hide it well. And I think as leaders, we feel a responsibility to kind of bear that for our teams, especially if you have employees. So if you're an entrepreneur running a business and you've got 3 or 4 staff, and you're experiencing some sort of trauma in your own life or with your team or with your product line or any of the examples we're using, there is a tendency, I think, to as a leader to want to absorb that so that your team can carry on. And so I think we even like get in the habit of like telling ourselves that of like, oh, I'm okay, I'll get through this. um yeah, so that's my thoughts.
Oh, I love that. And that is a great song.
Mhm.
Those lyrics resonate.
He wrote it during the pandemic, so even better.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. Sarah, your hand's raised too.
Sorry, I can't figure out how to put my hand down on here. That's almost verbatim what I was going to say as he was talking. I was like, oh, let me just put my hand down. Yeah, it's almost like a little gaslighting to ourselves. Like self-gaslighting is like a thing. And I have done that where it's like, well, just pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Like I'm a mental health coach. I've got clients in an hour. Like I don't have time for this. But I think some of the important part for me has been if I get a difficult phone call, like I have a lot of childhood trauma, right? So if my mom calls me, that could trigger me for like a whole day, right? So I just have to compartmentalize without gaslighting myself. So recognizing that it's like, this is hard. I'm grieving. I want to cry right now, but I literally have a meeting or I'm speaking in 5 minutes. Like it's just not the time. But then promising yourself you're going to go back and continue processing it later so that you don't get gaslighting. Like, nah, you're fine. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like you was saying. I was like, those are like verbatim what I've done for myself, you know. And so there is like that fine line where you can just start pretending and like discarding how you're feeling when it's very real and very present for you, but you've got stuff to do, right? Like we're leaders. You gotta do it. But
Oh,
yeah.
it's a fine line. Gosh, thank you for sharing that. And I like to teach when we see, people, we always say, yeah, I'm fine. How are you doing? I'm fine. Fine. The acronym feelings inside, not expressed.
Mm.
And because people are uncomfortable when we're sad, when we're crying. I'll never forget, I heard a mom, the baby was crying at the dinner table, and the mom kept saying, stop crying. Like, how can a baby stop crying? Babies naturally cry. That's how they communicate. But the mom was uncomfortable with everyone staring at her because of the noise. So again, our society is uncomfortable. We just want everyone to, we don't know how to talk about it. And another term we use is we call it Academy Award behavior. Back to the I'm fine. We paste on this fake smile, and like what people have been sharing. I got to pull myself up on my bootstraps. I got to muscle through. And yes, there's sometimes we have to when we got responsibilities or we're in a leadership position. But like you said, Sarah, we have to go back and process, check in. What am I really feeling, and not gloss over it, not dismiss what we're honestly feeling. My goodness, we're human beings. This is our greatest gift of feeling emotions and then being able to express them. Isn't that what makes a great friendship? Being able to talk heart to heart, so to speak. So, and the next myth is replace the loss. Oh, you'll find somebody else. They weren't meant for you. You deserve better. You gonna get another pet? I'll never forget when my dog Zeus died, my soul dog. I literally have his ashes. When I die, I'm gonna be spread with him. That's the kind of relationship we had. And my neighbor came up to me and said, "You can go get another dog?" Needless to say, I was very angry and hurt. And I know they meant well. Again, all these myths, people mean well, but they don't help. That pushed me deeper into my pain and hurt. And that was the last thing I was thinking about. How could I replace my Zeus? How can Sarah replace that very special friend that boom was just shut off in a moment? We just don't go replace and get a new one. How about at work? Well, sorry about the layoff, Rebecca. Just go get a new job. No, like you said, there's so many other layers of pain relating to getting laid off. Oh, something better will come along. Well, those things might be intellectually true, but grief is not intellectual, it's emotional. And until we tap into the emotions of what we're honestly feeling, we're going to stay stuck and maybe keep telling ourselves this. Well, I just, yes, we need to find another job, but we need to deal with, like Rebecca did, with all those layers of grief relating to that layoff. And what happens? What happens when we just try to move on too quickly and not deal with what we're feeling?
Mhm.
Does anybody ever try to just muscle through it and not deal with it?
It leaks.
A situation that's coming up for me with this is when I chose to leave a long career and make a complete different shift, and the grief in that decision making. So I didn't do that quickly. I don't think I just muscled through it. I definitely um, there was a lot of layers to it. But if I had just like made an abrupt emotional decision, or not take that time to really feel all the feels with the process, that could have been poor decision making.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that there were probably times where I was muscling through it, but that still was a grief, even though it was my choice. There was a lot of mixed feelings about it. Am I making the right decision? Is this too risky? Do I have what it takes? Lots of self-doubt and self-encouragement. Like there was both. Like, yes, I could do this. I can do have better, and worrying that I couldn't.
Mhm.
The unknowns and the fear.
Totally.
Thank you for your raw honesty, Sarah.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's one that how it relates to the workplace. And another kind of grief situation in the workplace, regarding the loss of an employee previously. This is not recent, but that also was definitely a grief process, trying to understand the situation, how that how I affected the situation, and then the decision making of replacing that employee. How do I keep going without that employee? There was a lot of I guess self-analysis with that too, and needing clear decision making. So trying to honor that in that time point too, so that I could have the strength to um, make the right next steps.
Mhm.
That is a lot. I can't imagine what you went through with that employee. And then, like you said, self-analysis, like what can I do differently, better, or more?
Mhm. So
Thank you.
sometimes the grief is on yourself too. It's not just the external situation at hand, but grieving how you're involved.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that. Like what I just said, it's the things we wish we would have done differently, better, or more, and the regrets, or those things keep us feeling incomplete and stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you really worked through it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely in a better place with that situation after in hindsight, but going through it as always, you don't know what the outcomes are going to be.
It's so hard. Grief is hard.
And that's a situation like you tell yourself or you hear externally of like, it's going to be okay. It's just get through it. This is part of the process, but you don't want to dismiss that so fast, even though like at the end through it all, it does get better. These things do happen for a reason, but it sounds so cliche in the moment.
It does. And it doesn't help in the moment,
Right.
Again,
Go ahead.
Oh, you go, Rebecca.
I was going to say it's a great example of the just replace the loss and the difference between the intellectual argument and the emotional reality. Because yeah, you can just go hire another employee, no big deal. But yes, you will hire another employee because that's what you do as a business owner or as a leader. But it doesn't discount or dismiss the emotional impact of that loss. And if it's not named and processed and acknowledged, then it leaks.
Yeah, I had a lot of anger and frustration too of like thinking about all that I put into it already, financially, time, energy, relationship building, like grieving what has already been done, and then kind of like and the grief of anticipation of how much work now needs to be done in going forward to restart a new relationship with a new employee.
Yeah.
A lot. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
And then the next one, myth, I'm sure most of us have heard this. Time heals all wounds. Just give it time. You'll feel better. I've worked with clients in their 80s who are still carrying grief that happened in their childhood. I like to give this little example. It's kind of silly, but let's say you go to your car and you have 2 flat tires. Are you just going to sit in your car, give it time, waiting for the air to magically come back in? I know that's silly, but that's kind of what we can do with our pain. Oh, I'm not going to think about it. Just give it time. I'll feel better. People say you'll feel better in a couple years. You got a divorce. Oh, 3 years is the turning point. Just give it time. If time really healed wounds, then none of us would be here because the time would have fixed it. Time does not heal wounds. It comes down to us taking action. And then the other one, grieve alone. Well, sometimes we feel, I don't want to burden people at work with what I'm feeling. We're all under this deadline. Now's not the time. I need to keep this to myself. I should be able to handle this. This isn't that big of a deal. The self-talk, what we tell ourselves. And then I'm afraid of what people are going to think when I tell them what's really going on in my life. It's scary to be vulnerable. None of us, because we fear maybe being judged, criticized, maybe somebody talking about us at work behind our back when we tell them what's going on. So, and then when we hear those unhelpful comments, like when I heard, are you going to get another dog? I didn't want to talk to that neighbor for a while because he really made me mad and I didn't want to hear any more of those comments. When people tell us unhelpful things, we pull back, we withdraw. And it makes sense because we don't want to be hurt anymore. But grief alone is extremely heavy, and we're not meant to carry it alone. We need support. But when we don't have the right tools or support, that's what we might naturally do. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and when there was chaos or pain, we were just expected to figure it out ourselves. And we We isolated. We grieved alone. There was no emotional support or connection. There's no nurturing. Well, let's talk about how you're feeling. Just back to those myths. Don't feel bad. Grieve alone. And then the next one is to be strong. I'll never forget when my dad died, 46 years of age. People kept telling me, Crystal, you need to be strong for your family. And that was the most confusing comment. I didn't know what to do with it. So I thought, I take care of everybody else but myself. Um, I need to bury my feelings and focus on work. Um, I need to pretend I'm okay. I can't fall apart right now. I can't show my kids that I'm hurting. I need to hide my tears. Can't show my employees that I'm devastated, that I don't, that I'm giving up. So I got to be strong. You know, that's that song or that phrase, got to fake it till I make it. What does that do to what we're really feeling? And yes, again, in the workplace, we have a meeting, you know, we can't carry what we're feeling all the time into every meeting. We have to use discretion, but still, we have to make time for ourselves a priority. I love what Sarah said. I got to go to this meeting, but when I'm done, I'm going to check in with myself. I'm going to process this. Being strong, it really hurts ourselves, and it hurts people around. It hurts our children. You know, if we hide our emotions and they see right through us, they know we're hurting. So what we're teaching our children or even coworkers is to hide our pain, to fake it, to put on more makeup, to spend, you know, just avoid it. And so there's no alive, real time connection. And we just continue to perpetuate these myths. I'm okay, I'm going to be strong, but inside we're falling apart and we're hurting. And it's just, we have to stop this. We have to give each other permission to feel what we're feeling, to say what we're saying, and be accepted. There's nothing wrong with us when we're hurting. It's again, it's our human nature. It's how we're made. We are created to feel good things, happy, joy, but also we're created to feel sad and painful things.
I had a therapist help me walk through this when I had this happen as a leader in the workplace. Um, when my son was admitted for in inpatient mental health because he had suicidal ideations. He had a plan and was about to kill himself when a friend narked on him, basically. And safe to tell, saved my son's life because the policeman showed up at my door right before he was going to take some pills. And he ended up going in for like a week of inpatient care and he's fine. But I went to work the next day. I was a manager, I had a team, and I was telling a peer about it, a friend of mine who was another manager, and she started crying. And I was sitting there going, why is my friend crying over my son in inpatient care and I'm not? Because I had gone to work with the math that I'm a leader and I have to be strong and I have to, that was how I behaved and how I showed up at work as a leader. And I was processing it with my therapist later, and she said, yeah, well, the truth is that your team can relate much better to the mom who's hurting when her son is ill than they can relate to the leader who has it all together. Because none of us really have it all together. And it's actually better leadership to role model, not being a puddle in the corner, like you said, completely falling apart, but to role model the honest feelings that I was feeling and being allowed to show them as a leader was a good thing for my team. That was a hard lesson for me to learn.
Look like your son's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10 years ago, a long time ago, but
Thank you. That's a very powerful example.
Sarah, your hand is raised too.
Yeah, can I just ask a question on this before we move on from the slide? So as a solopreneur, maybe this relates more to like those that co-work or network with and possibly even your clients, but in small organizations with your employees, especially if you're in leadership, with all of those different people, where do you feel like there's a line between showing up in a way that is, especially if you're a helper? I don't know how many are solopreneurs on this call that are in the helping fields or not, or if we're HR for an electricity company or not. But when you have to support other people, where is that fine line between knowing who to show up for really strongly versus the times that you can be vulnerable? Is it like an amount? Is it, you know, an instance? How often? Like, how do you measure that to know that you're not also overburdening others when you're going through something in your leadership roles?
This is a great question, Sarah. And I don't think there's a perfect one answer, but what I've learned in this work is going back to being emotionally honest. So if something devastating happened, you go to work, you're with your team, and they're like, gosh, Sarah, you just don't seem like yourself. Are you okay? Instead of you saying, I'm fine, you could say something like, something really devastating just happened, and I'm really struggling with it. And then it might not be the time, it might not be the audience that you feel comfortable sharing. And if they say, well, tell us what happened, again, you can be honest. I'd love to tell you more, but I don't think right now is the time or place. But I want to be honest with you. This is really hard for me. And so we can still be honest, but not give all the details. Or you can give a few more details. It's depending on where you're at in the relationship with your clients, your employees, your coworkers. Does that help?
Yeah, that does. Yeah, I know there's not a perfect algorithm, but I do appreciate that because you're not emotionally, you're not creating a cognitive dissonance for those who are seeing it, even the ones that don't even ask, the ones that don't. So like if you walk into a board meeting and you sit down and you say, I know I might seem a little off today, just even for the people that can't name it and won't bother to ask or don't feel safe to ask, maybe you could just say something so that they can understand, wait a second, look at her, she's being all peppy in her mouth, but her face says, she's in pain. Something's happening. So that's good because people can sense. I think the majority of humans can sense way more than what the average human gives each other credit for. It's been my experience. So like when people are noticing it, if you can name it, even without any details, is still the honest and transparent thing to do. So that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that is, you're honoring yourself. You're being honest with yourself by doing that. And the best audience are kids. They see right through us, and we can't hide it from them. So thank you, Sarah, for that question. And then the last myth is keep busy. Keep yourself distracted. Back to my grandma, when my grandma died, when she literally took her last breath, I immediately left the house and went behind the barn and cried. My brother left the house. I don't know where he went. And my sister got busy cleaning. I mean, top to bottom. She stayed up all night cleaning, cleaning, cleaning. That's how she dealt with it. I dealt with my grandma's death by isolating, by grieving alone. And also, if a loss happens outside of work, we can just throw ourselves into even more work and bury ourselves just to keep ourselves distracted because we don't want to feel. We don't want to feel what's going on. And also we might not know what to do with the feelings that we're carrying. So keeping busy is a huge distraction. It doesn't help, and it prolongs the pain, it buries it, and it'll catch up with us. It doesn't go away.
Yeah, and I see this in the workplace too, because when I heard this speaker speak on organizational grief, it was really in the sense of change management, that we have all these trainings around change management in the workplace and how to navigate change and how to, guide organizations through change. And we've never really recognized the fact that change is loss. And so part of the problem with change management is we never stop in the process of let's get on with the change. This is the new direction. Let's get on with it. we never stop to acknowledge that there's emotions going on underneath that change, and that's why there's resistance to change. And so even in the workplace, this can show up as just moving on to the next thing, whatever that change is in strategy, the new leader, the new team, the new project, without stopping to at least name what's going on. And I know you're going to get into this, so we don't need to spend more time on it, but I think the whole idea of naming and honesty is critical here.
Yes, to acknowledge what just happened, not sweep it under the rug, not ignore it, not dance around it, and not assume that everyone's on board. You're right, Rebecca. That's so all these six myths, they're helpful, they're well intentional, but they don't help us recover. Again, grief, we're all created to process what we're feeling in the moment. We weren't created to be storage units.
Mm-hmm.
We're meant to just process, feel. So, where does grief show up? And this can show up, both at work or just personally, every part of our life. Extreme exhaustion, just never feeling rested. High anxiety, panic attacks, just waking up in the morning and frozen with fear, nervousness, burnout, zero motivation. Again, back to being emotionally exhausted. Brain fog. Just where did I put my keys? Where's my phone? How did I get to work? I don't remember driving. Just being emotionally checked out, just in this constant fog. Irritability, just out of nowhere. Angry at people, road rage, withdrawing from coworkers, from family, from your friends. So grief can show up differently, and especially as business owners, it could show up with our income fluctuating, highs and lows, contracts, opportunities, things just falling through that we were counting on, just having a hard time staying focused. Showing up feels harder than it used to, just no motivation, wanting to check out, not caring, just feeling numb. Canceling or rescheduling clients last minute because we just know I'm not there. I can't do it. I'm not there emotionally. I don't have the strength. Second guessing, overthinking, overanalyzing our decisions. These things can show up as grief. Can you think of any other ways that grief might have been showing up for you as a business owner, or that you've seen?
Sometimes I'm feeling like I want to give up. So I think that probably goes to the burnout, or knowing that I have so much to do to move forward, but not knowing where to start. What is the next best step? Feel like the list feels overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Those are great ones, Sarah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, when I get really stressed, it can be crippling in my activity, and I just shut down. And so then the more stressed I get, it compounds, because then I need to like not do things, but then not doing things makes things more stressful. So I heard a term, well, I got introduced to the term ruminate, and I didn't know what it was. And I kept hearing Rebecca use the term ruminate, and I'm like, what the heck is she saying when she says that? And I'm like, oh, it's like kind of like just like repeating this like pattern. I know that those are two kind of different things, but I don't know, it just gets me thinking about the cycle of stress and the cycle of this feeling of overwhelmed, and what it does to me. So
Thank you. Yeah.
I know when I lost my mom, as a business owner, what I had to work through was um, the lack of energy. Like my body wouldn't let me do anything. It was like my body was taking over. The grief would show up as brain fog, as literal exhaustion. And so I had to navigate the waves of that. And that was how I managed as a business owner, was I just had to kind of honor the days I had low energy and accept that and give myself some grace for it. And it taught me a lot about prioritization as a business owner, because I think the biggest myth that we carry as business owners is it all depends on me. I have to carry everything on my shoulders. And there's truth in that because we're a business owner, but there also is lies in that, because really not everything is like brain surgery, like the world's going to end, death or life decisions. There are things that we can lay down that won't destroy the business and won't destroy our employees or won't destroy everything. And it's about, in my case, I kind of didn't have a choice. And so I just picked very carefully what I put my energy into for a while.
I love what you said there about energy. It's and giving yourself permission to, okay, I just need to rest. I need to take the day off. Giving yourself permission and protecting that energy. And it's different for each one of us.
Yeah.
Some people are energized by going to the gym or by a nap or eating. It's just, again, it's honoring our bodies, knowing what works for us, what doesn't, and being curious. It's so much pressure. I wish in the beginning we had taken a little poll of who's self-employed, owning their own business. I know for me, and I like what you said, Sarah, that I'll be honest, I've been doing this, for 20 years, but there's been times I felt like, can I keep doing this? Is this what I really want to do? Because I was just giving, helping people. And I think like what I told you the other day, Rebecca, I was pouring from an empty cup, but I didn't realize that until I hit a wall, like, I'm exhausted. I don't want to talk to people. But I'm in the people business. So that's when I knew, whoa, I got to slow down here and take care of me. So, any other comments? So, what actually helps? Like, how can we help other people, or how can we support ourselves? And we talked about this a little bit. I think Rebecca was saying is we got to acknowledge something's going on. We got to acknowledge what happened. Like if a coworker comes in, to acknowledge, I'm sorry about your mom. I can't imagine what you're going through. Rather than walking by their desk because it might be uncomfortable for you to talk to them, acknowledge, don't ignore. Again, don't dance around it. A death happened or a job loss or whatever happened. Let's just be honest about it. And then this is the most important thing we can do. Ask what happened. And then be quiet and listen. Grievers' bottom line, when we're hurting, we just need someone to listen to us. And what I mean by listening is not thinking, okay, I got to give her advice. What can I say? You don't need to say anything. Just give them permission to say whatever they're feeling. Don't interrupt them. Just listen. And be comfortable with silence. That's hard for us. It's hard for me. We want to get in there and fix and make them feel better. We can't. There's nothing we could say to a griever to make them feel better. Nothing. Mm-hmm. We don't know what they're feeling. We have to let them fall. We have to let them hurt. But how we can help and support them is by being honest, acknowledging it, and listening, and just being present with them. And what I mean by being present, being emotionally present, when you're talking to somebody and you can tell they're figuring out how they're going to respond to you, that they're going to give you, and you lost them. You're not listening. So that takes the pressure off of us. We can't fix a hurting person. The only thing we can do is listen to them in the moment. And that it's very simple, but again, it's hard. Our nature is because we're uncomfortable with negative emotions, who likes to see somebody crying? We want to scoop them up. We want to help. Sometimes even touching a person when they're crying interrupts what they're feeling. That's the hardest thing for me sometimes with my clients when they're crying. I don't offer them a tissue. The tissue's right there. I don't reach over and touch them. I just let them feel and be in that moment. And then you know what happens magically? It passes.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel better. And nine times out of 10, they say, "Thank you for listening." So try that. You know, just be aware. Am I really listening to this person, or am I looking for a way to fix them? So, and then, so what helps us if we're the one going through a loss? Just if you could remember the definition of grief, it's your normal, your natural reaction to what happened. And it's unique and individual for you. And to not judge yourself, to not criticize yourself, to just be human, fall apart, feel the whole range of emotions. And remember, we're not going to feel those emotions all the time, but they hit us hard in the moment. That's why I call my business Ebb and Flow. Grief is like a wave. It comes in, crashes, hits us, knocks us over, then it recedes. We feel like we're just drowning in our pain, like we'll never get through it. Grief is not tidy. So there is hope and there is a way through our grief. Yes, we need to talk, acknowledge, listen, and be mindful of those myths. Really question your belief system. How do you tend to deal with painful situations in your life? Please go back over those. Ask yourself, what do I tend to do? I mean, my tendencies have always been to isolate, go to food for comfort, withdraw from people, shut down emotionally. Those have been my tendencies, and I've had to unlearn them. But also, I've had to learn the very steps that I teach. We have to take, like going back to that one myth, time does not heal. It's what we do with the time. So we have to take actions. We have to take specific steps and learn the correct information on how to recover from any type of loss. And that's the kind of work I do through this program. So if you'd like to learn more about this program and dig a little bit deeper, please reach out to me. I'd love to just chat with you, learn more about what you're going through, and see if I can help or provide other resources. And I just want to encourage you on one thing is there's a difference between pain and sadness. When we're hurting, when we're grieving, it's a lot of pain. But we don't have to carry that pain with us forever if we have the right tools, actions, and information. It's not that we'll never feel sad about what happened, but you don't have to be saddled with that pain for the rest of your life. And that's what makes all the difference so that you can live with peace, clarity, and hope. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. If you have, I don't know if we have time for questions or comments. I'll hand back to you, Rebecca.
Thanks. I want to open it up for questions too, but I just wanted to, I dropped in the chat, I was going to share this at the beginning that where Crystal gets her training from the Grief Recovery Institute. This is an official grief recovery method. I've been through her program before, and it was tremendously helpful for me. It's why I brought her on. I knew she'd be a powerful speaker, and I know this relates directly to so many layers of what we're doing as business owners, because there's our personal grief outside of just work that we have to carry while running a business. There's the grief of running a business and all the things that can come up for us as business owners, losses and changes. There's the grief of our employees. That's an undercurrent in our business of handling and holding their pain and being an emotional container for them as the owner, as the leader. And so having tools to navigate this is just part of being a good leader. It's just part of being a healthy human. It's not like we talked at the beginning, this is a hard topic we don't talk about, and that's part of the problem that we don't talk about this very important, very real, very relevant topic to every one of us who is a business owner. So I highly encourage Crystal's work, and I want to hear from all of you as well, what your takeaways were.
I'm reminded by the cliche of you can't help somebody else before you help put your own oxygen mask on. And this is a great real life example of that, to be taking care of the grief that you're experiencing so that you can show up in the workplace for others and notice when others are grieving and be an active listener. Thank you for your time. I have to run to another appointment, so I'm going to sign off, but thank you so much. I got a lot of value out of it.
Thanks,
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Bye.
It's not very rare that there's two Sarahs in one room, even when there's only a couple of people, but to have us both with no H's is quite rare. So I love that. Crystal, you know that I love your work. And I think Rebecca and Crystal now know me well enough to know that I am a sucker for tools. So thank you for sharing some practical ways to kind of move through this, as whether you're a solopreneur or not, moving into the space with clients, with people you're networking with your employees, yourself when you're going through stuff. That practicality is really, really important. And that's really what makes your work extra special. So thank you for your time, Crystal. It's been great.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so glad you were here. I appreciate your support.
Before the next Sarah jumps off, want to make sure we share a couple announcements. And Crystal, thank you so much. This was a great session. Oftentimes, people go into business for themselves because they want the freedom and the flexibility and the glamorous lifestyle of being an entrepreneur. And this is the reality of being an entrepreneur, is it's hard. And we have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. And this is why the Wellness Wednesday series exists. This is why Rebecca stepped up into this role. We do offer free one-on-one consultations here at the SBDC to kind of talk through some of those stress points. We're not doing therapy, but we are helping you think intentionally about how to manage your workplace culture. And so, Rebecca, thank you for being an advisor here. Thank you for providing those services to our community. And they're always free to our clients. So please remember that. Next week, we're going to be diving into HR and hiring practices in Colorado. So if you have employees or thinking about getting employees, that will be April 29th. We're going to be talking about Colorado labor laws, hiring practices, and the life cycle of employees. We're going to take a week off the week after for Small Business Week. So the week of May 4th through 8th, if you haven't bought your tickets yet, I hope you'll join us at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo for the Small Business Safari. So we have a really great lineup of events all week long. Every day we've got a cool event for you to attend. You just simply go to pikespeaksbw.com. That's smallbusinessweek.com. So Pikes Peak SBW. I hope you all join us. Again, Crystal, excellent job. Great presentation. Thank you all for being here today. And we'll hope to see you next week. So thanks.
Bye.
Brandon.